Howdy.
John, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
All right.
Howdy, everyone.
So John, if you could maybe kick us off, because there's going to be sort of two things we're going to do here. One is talk a little bit about Engagio's go-to-market fit journey. And one of the fascinating things Tay mentioned is they went from 0 to 1 million ARR in 15 months, which is light speed. But it's always not roses, clearly. So what are some of the things that haven't been working? So we'll talk about that. And then John and I are going to do live sort of building, and I'm going to pull the playbook out of him that we used, or he used at Marketo. So you're going to see sort of us go through what would look like an exercise that you would be doing with your teams, or you're like, all right, let's start to sketch out the playbook. So we're going to do that live. So it's likely to be a little messy, but that's kind of the point. All right, John, if you talk a little about, just for introduction purposes, sort of what Engagio does, and maybe tell a little bit about your story on the 0 to 1 million.
All right, so I like to explain Engagio, what we do kind of as an analogy referencing back to Marketo, because that's a company most people know. So I was the original head of marketing at Marketo, and as we'll talk about a little bit later, Marketo was a very marketing-led go-to-market model where about 80% of all the pipeline came through the marketing engine. And we were pioneers of the demand generation model, where we ran our content and other kinds of campaigns. We captured as many responders as we could, and then we ran them through the lead nurturing and lead scoring to kind of get as much stuff out the other side as possible, which was pretty innovative at the time. And that analogy, the analogy for that kind of marketing, I refer to as fishing with nets. Because we wanted to catch as many as we could, and we didn't care who we specifically caught in that net as long as we caught enough, overall. Well, what happened at Marketo was, over time we tried to, we were moving up market. We were going after larger and larger companies. We wanted companies that were, frankly, better fits in the ideal customer profile.
Yep.
And we were trying to actually do more marketing to our install base. And what those all had in common was, those big fish didn't just happen to swim into our net. And we realized that the go-to-market model we built that worked really well on this SMB world wasn't working as well for the whales, the bigger companies. And we had to, I took my team through crazy contortions to try to make Marketo and Salesforce work. Like literally get the tooling to work to try to do this account-based, more proactive kind of outbound go-to-market model. The analogy I came up with for describing that kind of marketing was fishing with spears. And that was the inspiration for...
Fishnet versus spearfishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that was the inspiration for Engagio. Whereas Marketo is a great platform for fishing with nets, what we're building with Engagio is a great platform for fishing with spears. Great. So that's what's now become known as account-based marketing. So that's what we do at a high level.
So tell the team here about how'd you do the 0 to 1 million in 15 months? Like some stories about what worked, what didn't work, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would love to repeat that, the 0 to 1 million ARR in 15 months.
Sure. Well, the number one thing we did is I started Marketo first. And so being a second-time founder was an obvious accelerant.
Okay.
And I'll try to share some repeatable lessons, but that's just true. I raised a $10 million Series A month after starting it. That gave me resources. What's more repeatable though is I spent a lot of time kind of before really starting the company trying to figure out the market that I wanted to play in. Because I knew this pain that I wanted to solve, but frankly, there were other interesting business problems I was thinking about solving also. But what I realized was that this idea of account-based marketing, was at an inflection point. You could tell, this company called Demandbase that had been around for a really long time and never got traction, and they were just at the cusp of there was something there with this idea of account-based marketing and so on. And so So we said, okay, we're going to play in this category, which felt like it was nascent but ready to go. And then one of the first things that we did was we attacked it with a thought leadership strategy.
Yes. Why don't you say that again? That was a really important point, and we had a acoustic competition going on there.
Normally a siren goes and then it kind of like comes down. This one kind of comes in and out.
Yeah, right? That was weird.
So what
Doppler effect is not working.
So as we'll talk about at Marketo, one of the core things that I did was for marketing is we created at Marketo what we called these definitive guides. Kind of big meaty content assets that were literally the definitive resource on a given topic. So one of the first things I did at Engagio, like, all right, you have a playbook that works. I actually thought about calling it a definitive guide, but I felt that would be too derivative. So I wrote something called the Clear and Complete Guide to Account-Based Marketing.
Big change.
Yeah, exactly. But otherwise.
Okay, so this was a book that was thought leadership at the front end. It was like
120,
fertilizing the ground with thought leadership.
120 pages. High quality writing, high quality production, not salesy at all. Very much meant to be like, if you want to know about this topic that's kind of up and coming and hot, this is the thing that you want to read.
Okay.
And also very, very readable. Like I think there's a trick to kind of how you lay them out to make it very scannable, and people pick them up and they flip through them and all that kind of thing. So we did that, and at the same time, we built a product. Our first product was very much not the end all and be all of everything we want it to be. The first product solved, a pain that we came across, in the world of account-based marketing.
What was the one pain?
It really did reflect back to the pain that we had at Marketo. That Marketo and HubSpot and Eloqua and all the other marketing tools are lead-based tools. Mm-hmm. You log into Marketo and you see a list of leads. And in Salesforce, you also have leads that are separated from contacts and accounts. So they also kind of live on their own. And as a result, companies have a real challenge with, when they're trying to think account-based, that they literally cannot see everything that's happening at the account level.
Got it.
There's no visibility.
So that was the pain you zeroed in.
So we solved that first. So frankly, it wasn't that hard to build. And so what we had was, a product that solved a real pain, and then we tapped into this vein.
So how'd you figure out the urgency? So in the spirit of go-to-market fit, like you've got this idea of a pain, like how'd you figure out that was actually not just a pain, but had some urgency to it? Like why now and not a year from now?
Well, it was really, the urgency was around account-based marketing, not the specific pain.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Like it was just on the cusp where everybody's like talking about have you heard about this new thing, account-based marketing? What is it? And then so we tapped into it from that thought leadership side.
Okay.
And then maybe because I had the Marketo background and they heard, oh, John's doing something new, like a lot of people were interested in, well, so what are you doing? Okay. And then we were able to tell them, oh, we're solving this pain. And they're like, that's cool. But again, I'll be honest, I think a lot of people were buying into the vision, right? They were buying into this is going to be, the next great marketing platform. And, I'm along for the ride, kind of in the early days. But that's what drove, that first $1 million was kind of great awareness around a hot and growing category. We did a lot of, in addition to the book, we did a lot of partner marketing. So, again, because we had this concept that was sexy, people wanted to talk about it. We basically said, let's do a webinar. We go to Dun & Bradstreet or one of the predictive analytics companies, or like all these complementary tools out there. And we'd say, let's do a webinar. I'll invite my people, you'll invite your people. We'll talk about account-based marketing and we'll share the leads. In reality, when I started, we had no leads. We didn't invite anybody. But with each one, our database got a little bit bigger, and we were able to kind of really build out a bunch of awareness that way too. So just
How did you then work on closing the accounts? Okay, so you're thought leadership, awareness, people interested. Yep. Like talk about sort of the once somebody was interested, like what was the sales playbook to go close them?
We're focused on the first $1 million still, right?
Yep, first $1 million. Yeah, this is in the very beginning.
Yeah, so I was a salesperson.
Okay. The founder-based selling. Okay.
Yep. Honestly, it wasn't rocket science. We had a form that if you want to, the guide I told you was available. You could literally buy it for $20, but all over our website was sign up here and get it for free instead. So I think I sold it for $20 like 4 times. But we sold it. We gave it away for free a lot, but there was a value on it that was nice. Anyway, so and at the bottom of the form was like, check here if you'd like a demo of Engagio. And I was pretty busy, but the ones that checked here that looked interesting, I followed up with.
Now, when did you decide to add your first sort of sales rep to shift from founder-based selling to now you had like a regular person?
Yep.
Selling?
I mean, it was when I was basically flat out just following up on. There were enough people coming in saying, checking the box, saying, yep, they wanted a demo. A little bit also opportunistically around kind of timing, but mostly it was like.
What was the profile of the person you chose to hire?
All right. So first of all, I'm a big fan of the advice of don't hire one, hire two. The explanation that I heard that I've now shared a bunch of times is if you have 2 reps and they're both being successful, then you know that you probably have product market fit and the ability to kind of go. If you have 2 reps and neither being successful, it's a pretty good signal that you're actually not yet ready.
There's a foundational problem there. Yep.
And if you have 2 reps and 1 successful, then it's performance. But the problem is if you only have 1, you miss out on that signal. So we hired.
That's interesting.
So we hired 2. Both had experience working in early stage startups. One in particular.
What level? Like inside sales, director level, VP level?
Both were experienced, successful individual contributors.
Okay, so these are like Davy Crockett types to sort of help figure things out, win some deals, figure out the patterns.
Yeah. So again, one probably had 15 years of experience.
Okay.
The other one probably had about 6 years of experience, but selling interesting, hard, complex enterprise deals. The younger one, I'm not convinced he's going to be a salesperson his whole career. I think he probably wants to be on the more CEO track, and so he was very much attracted to that early stage kind of thing. And then we hit $1 million. It's just me and the 2 of them before we even then hired an SDR, and then we started to think about kind of scaling.
Great work.
Now I'll tell you.
Go ahead, please.
I think we're going to probably move on to kind of past $1 million and some of the other challenges along the way.
Yep, I'd love to shift gears there. Go for
but
it.
I'll tee that up with an interesting insight. So, time goes by, another 6 months, and now we're starting to renew the deals that we sold.
Okay. Got it. So you got your first $1 million of ARR in the bag.
Yeah.
Now it's time to make that 1 million ARR repeat.
Renew, yeah. One other point I'll make is we sold most of our deals initially on what we called 3+9 terms. So it was a year deal, annual deal that they could then opt out of after the first 3 months.
Interesting.
And so
why'd you do that?
We were brand new. Nobody, people. It was unproven. And what it allowed me to do is go to somebody when we had nothing.
Yep.
And say, let's just say, what, it's $20,000. So you can basically try this thing for 3 months for $5,000. That way there's still some skin in the game.
So you lowered some skin in the game, but you lowered sort of the threshold of pain that they could go to their boss and complain about.
And but because it was opt out, then there wasn't a whole other set of paperwork if we got past it. So that 3+9 I thought worked really well. And we got like very few of the people opted out of their 3.9.
Okay. So that's interesting in and of itself. That was a big signal of
that was my first
renewal,
signal.
that people weren't sort of hitting the eject button after 3.
Right.
Okay.
And obviously, it was only back to your prior question. Actually, now I think about it, it was only when I saw that on the first couple 3.9s that I'd sold that they weren't ejecting that I had more confidence than hire the 2 AEs.
That's a little bit counterintuitive, actually, because the classic wisdom there would be sign as long a contract as you can, lock the customer in. And in many ways, you actually wouldn't know the answer.
Very beginning.
Yeah, in the very beginning, that's actually counterintuitive. In the very beginning, I hadn't thought about this. By doing that, A, you enabled yourself to close some deals you might not have closed, but B, you're sort of hiding a decision point earlier in the process so that you can get a signal about renewal or non-renewal before a year.
Yeah.
It's risky, but that's a really super important signal. Like, I bet there'd be board members out there that would argue against that in the early days. That
But you're still searching for product market fit.
yeah, that's really cool. That's a neat idea.
I don't think so. Because like to get as much as you can. That's more I think about when you have some product market fit scaling. So anyway, so I felt like we had a pretty good fit with the product because we'd gotten past these 3 nines.
Yep.
And then we started getting up to the point, where we're renewing the deals I sold, and they're renewing, and we're 80-85% gross renewal, thinking like, all right, we got a business here, let's start like pumping this thing. And a few months more later, and now we start renewing the deals that the new AEs sold, and now all of a sudden we're looking at like 60%.
Oh, interesting. So the ones you sold, high renewal rate. The one the other AE sold, low renewal rate.
It started to
drop. Interesting.
It started to really, really drop. And so that's forced us then to, we were in an interesting spot at that point because based on all those prior signals, we had started to really scale.
Yeah.
We raised the Series B. We hired more people. We were spending more money. We ramped the burn up. And now we're looking at a business like, do we really have as much fit as we thought we did when we have this product that's renewing at like 60 to 70%? Not better than that. And that's sort of been almost the second phase of the story here.
So yeah, please. So let's roll the clock forward. So now you're in. You think you found go-to-market fit, won some deals. You're trying to hit the renewal button on these things. Like, talk a little bit about what's happening now as you sort of roll the clock forward. You had mentioned earlier sort of a funny spot in the discussion about sort of an aspirational product versus fully operationalized, and talk a little bit about that because I think finding go-to-market fit isn't just about that initial win. It's about making sure that renewal is there in the end too.
There's a lot of pieces to it. So, we had that first product I talked about that like is all about bringing the data together and then basically exposing it back out for analytics. And that product was good and it worked.
Yep.
However, I believe pretty passionately we're not going to build $1 billion company as an analytics tool. Something that brings data together. That we have to build something that's operational. That like a Marketo, you run your processes on it as opposed to just something that you log into and look at interesting reports. And we started to build a second product that was more operational. And I'll be honest, we didn't get it right. We positioned it initially as a tool for sales development reps and not marketers. And that put us up in competition with tools like Outreach and SalesLoft. And it just wasn't who we were and what was suited, who we were suited to. So that was sort of challenge number one. And so really what we had, is continuing to like just back to that first product, which provides insights and analytics. And that's the analogy I was sort of starting to talk to you about. People will come to it. I would say we have a pretty good go-to-market fit on the new business because ABM is hot, we have a great brand, we have a really strong sales and marketing execution, and we can sell a story, right? We're selling, we can go to people and say, you want to become account-based because that is the next new way to do it, and we are going to help you do that. We are your first step on that journey. People buy that, right? And so then kind of we're growing. But in order to actually make that work, it requires, that you do account-based marketing, which means it requires you get your marketing and your sales team to work together in a much more coordinated.
That's a fairly intimate operational change to your customers' go-to-market playbook.
Yeah, exactly. And so to really get value from our solution, they have to do that. And the reality is that takes work. And so we worry sometimes, or we think sometimes that just when we just have this one analytic product, it's kind of like selling a gym membership. It's you buy it.
How is it like a gym membership? That's an interesting analogy.
You buy it because it's aspirationally like, oh hey, I want to get in shape. Oh hey, I want to do account-based marketing. And then you get into it and you realize this is hard. I got to wake up at 6 a.m. every day and go to the gym, right? I got to like actually get my marketing and my sales team to talk to each other.
Yep.
Now, and what we see across our customers is if you stick with it and you do the work, it delivers great benefits. You get in shape. When we have more than 7 weekly active users, on our product, they actually gotten the salespeople into it and are seeing the value, we have 93% retention.
Say that again? That was really important. Say
we
that
have more
again.
than 7 weekly active users using the product, then we get 93% retention.
Wow. Okay. So that goes to like the playbook must include getting customers operationalized.
Oh yeah.
And like
and that's and frankly,
in some way.
We probably didn't spend enough time on thinking about that early on.
Okay.
We probably just assumed like they buy it, they're gonna like,
Of course they're gonna operationalize it.
Exactly.
Because it's that good.
And you have to do work on that. So that's the gym membership, right? It takes if you stick with it, it provides benefit, but frankly, it requires a lot of work. So what this has meant is we have had to over the last 6 to 9 months, in some ways put barriers into that really strong go-to-market engine we had up front, right? Because we can sell this thing, right? We can grow and we can juice the top line, right? But we've learned to make it successful, to get customers that are ultimately going to renew and be profitable. You know what? Don't sell to a 50-person company. They're not going to get to 7 weekly active users. There literally just aren't enough salespeople.
Interesting. So you're looking at this renewal that's out here and sort of reversing back up to the front end of your sales machine to say, we want to narrow the aperture of who we're going after.
So it's a little bit,
because we see out here that we have a low chance of success in the long run.
So we changed compensation for both sales development, marketing, as well as sales.
Okay.
On like creating pipeline, they get paid more if they create pipeline at the kinds of companies that we know renew better. So we did that kind of work. And then the other thing we did is in some cases we made the sales process harder. Because
that seems kind of counterintuitive. So let's talk about that. So making the sales process harder.
Yeah, our whole go-to-market engine is, to be honest, built for velocity.
Okay.
My head of sales comes from Marketo, where we had this high velocity model. And we have it's an average of 68-day sales cycle.
Okay.
And our ASP is about 30,000, to kind of put that in context. But so for example, we now require a customer to sign what we call a success plan as part of signing the contract. And the success plan includes things like, what does your 90-day implementation look like, and who is going to be involved, and what are the milestones,
Wow. So that you're actually adding like a speed bump.
Yeah.
Into the customer's signing decision.
Exactly. So that way
Gutsy.
we know we're going, because the people the deals that hit that bump will be the deals that would be less likely to be successful. The deals that are going to be successful will go right over that.
That's fascinating. So rewind the clock to when you're going from the 0 to 1 million. Do you wish you had put that speed bump in back then? Or are you like, look, the only reason I'm willing to put the speed bump in now is because I'm confident we sort of were able to drive as fast as we were in the beginning?
It's a really, really good question. Somehow, I wish I'd had a better set of signals around really where we were with Fit before scaling.
Okay.
The cost side. Because obviously, as everybody knows, when you ramp up your sales and marketing, your burn goes up, and it's hard to bring it back down. And you really want to make, and
that's a fascinating point. This sort of insight into sort of the renewal and sort of long-term utilization sooner.
Exactly. And that's why predictive metrics, like Mickey's company, Uptrinsic, can tell you, are people actually using the product?
Right.
Like finding ways to bring those metrics into your system. In terms of like our, and for us, it's 7 weeks.
Yeah, it's not just the initial win that matters; it's actually the renewal as well.
And the adoption that kind of get there. For figuring out what is your North Star metric. For us, it's 7 weekly active users. I talked to another company.
That's a great metric. That's a fascinating pinnacle metric, because if you get to, hey, we want to get to 7 daily active users per account, Like there's all sorts of things that need to line up underneath that to make that happen. There's an onboarding process, there's a product piece, there's a customer success thing, there's a who you won. Like that's a fascinating pinnacle metric to where if you get that right, lots of other things need to line up to make that happen.
And that's for us. The point is every business needs to find it for them. I talked to another company that for them, I don't know the exact piece, but it's basically their DAO-MAO ratio. So their daily active users as a percentage of their monthly active users.
Okay.
That's the stickiness metric. So it's effectively how often does the average user log in per month.
Right.
And they found that getting that above certain threshold is the number one predictor of retention for them. And they were able to figure out that there were certain use cases in the sales process that were correlated to that metric being good versus that metric not being good.
Oh, interesting.
And then they basically turned off the use cases that didn't work, in the sales process. So no matter what that metric is for you, I think is
very powerful.
Find it.
All right. Thank you, John. Super insightful. The idea that you would deliberately insert a speed bump into the sales process is super counterintuitive, but
it wasn't easy getting my head of sales there.
How did you actually talk about that? Like, how did you convince them to do that? You what?
I lowered quotas.
Okay, there you go. Sometimes that's the answer.
That was the give and take. I was like, all right, I want to purposely make this a little harder for you, but I'm going to therefore make it easier.
I'm going to solve it on the other side by lowering your quota, so we're in this together.
I don't have enough data to say because it's only been there for about a month and a half now. I can't point to any single one that's like, oh, that deal fell out, as a result. But in some cases, the question was, did we lose any contracts because of this?
Yeah.
The reality though is the ones you lose are going to be the ones that look like they just have a long sales cycle until you figure out you actually lost them. So I'll have to track that data more over time.
Have you thought about doing professional services instead of this customer success plan, or is it tied to that? How are you tying those together? And then I've got an anecdote here about one of the big mistakes I made at Mobile Iron at this point.
So we started charging for onboarding services pretty early, overall. Only about 3 months after these two new AEs started selling, I started making them pay for services or charge services as part of their onboarding as well. And it was never much. It was like 8 to 10% of the contract. But it's just a way to kind of make the customer know they're kind of getting something. I've been trying to ramp that services percentage up as well. Because
that's a little counterintuitive because most people would say keep your services number low as a percentage of ARR in the beginning.
I think it could get up to 15.
Okay.
I'm not trying to get to 30 or 40 or anything like that. These play off each other a little bit. A higher services percentage is signaling to the customer that this is hard, right, and that this takes work. And to a degree, I want that signaling because if they think it's like piece of cake, they go to the gym and they can sit there and it takes care of themselves, then they're not going to be successful. So I want that signaling of like, actually, there is some hard here. ABM does take work, but at the same time, too high services can start to pull from your ARR, and that's where you gotta watch that line.
So I'll share an interesting story here that was one of the bigger mistakes I made at Mobile Iron, which sort of goes in the unlearned bucket, which is in the early days as we were starting to win lots of customers, I hated professional services. I thought professional services was an excuse to build a bad product and that your sales team would get addicted to some PS revenue, which is low margin, and pull it out of your ARR. I just was like, ugh, just no professional services at all, all customer success. And I'll tell you, that was probably the right thing to do in the early days, but I held on to that dogma too long. Because fast forward to where we were, had lots of large Global 2000 companies. If you looked at the Global 2000 companies or the Global 5000, the ones that churned, almost every single one of them was due to they never really got operationalized. And when we sort of peeled the onion about why didn't they get operationalized, it was because it wasn't that they didn't want to, it's that they didn't know exactly what to do. And in many cases, they actually came to us and said, can you help us? And we said no, because we didn't have professional services. And it sort of ended up some customers got successful by ham and egging it using our customer success team, which beat the snot out of our support team unnecessarily, which was really doing professional services sort of on like by accident through customer success. And the irony is the customers would have been willing to pay us for it. So in retrospect, like I held on to that dogma too long. So I think what John's talking about here is sort of a healthy balance of sort of thinking about those two and being a little less dogmatic about it.
One of the things that we
thank
saw,
you for sharing that.
yeah, one of the things we saw back at Marketo, and I wish I could remember the exact statistic, but we sold 2 levels of services. You know, basically online onboarding, and then premium that did as much of the onboarding as possible on premise, on site, and it was something dramatic, like twice the or half the churn if the deal was done, if the implementation was done on site versus not. So it can have a real significant impact. And the other thing that services can do that's nice is it can create some urgency, because even if it's a year contract on the software, you can say the services has a 90-day limit. You know, and that just gives them some incentive to actually get moving, because part of this thing expires.
Great. All right, John, thank you for that great mix of sort of context and detail about your journey with some good nuggets. So thank you. That was terrific.
Thank you.